बोलिए सतगुरु महाराज की जय, सच्चे दरबार की jai. Thank you for joining us today for the spiritual discourse. I want to speak about the power of silence. Every day we see all around us the power of words, the power of communication. We use words to get what we want, to communicate ideas. But if we look at many religious traditions, spiritual practices, silence plays a very large role. What is it about silence that is so powerful? Many centuries ago, there was a great saint, Saint Clare of Assisi, who was a disciple of Saint Francis of Assisi. The majority of her spiritual practice was keeping completely silent. And whoever came to her and asked her, "Mother, how can I elevate myself? How can I grow to have such a great love for God as I see in you?" And she would say to them, "My daughter, as much as you can, whenever you can, at all times, keep completely silent, so that when God whispers to you, you're ready to hear him." She would give the example of a rose. When the seed is planted, it doesn't make a sound. When it begins to sprout, it doesn't make a sound. When it begins to grow, it doesn't say a thing. The flower blooms, it doesn't say a thing. Without words, it attains to such beauty. Take the example of the sun. What language does the sun know? What language does the sun speak? There are no words. But as the sun shines down, it gives light and warmth. What does that light say? The light says, "I burn to give you light. I burn to give you life." What does the warmth say to us? "I burn hotter than you can even imagine, so that there may be life, so that you may live." The earth speaks no language. But what does it do? It nurtures and sustains all life. The minerals that come from the earth, everything is composed, our bodies are composed of those minerals. The sun, the earth, the flowers, the trees, all of nature is speaking, is communicating without a single word. And when we think of silence, we think, how can I stop speaking? Because if I do not speak, how will I function? But this is a great misconception. When we hold our tongue, a new way of speaking develops. And what is that way? It is the way of the entire universe. It is the language of the universe. And you can simply put it in this way, that actions speak louder than words. The action of the sun gives life. The burning of the sun gives life. The patience of the earth gives life. All things, the entire universe, communicates through action, through its doing. The more that we learn to keep silent, the more that we learn to communicate through our actions, and the more powerful those actions become. When I was younger, I noticed that there were some people that as long as they were breathing, they would be speaking about something. And the words would keep flowing and flowing and flowing and flowing. And nothing would get done. And there were some people who would barely say a word, but from their hands, so many things would get done. When we learn to keep silent, when we learn to hold our tongue, that new language, the language of the entire universe, the language of nature, becomes apparent to us, becomes second nature to us. So Saint Clare was the counterpart to Saint Francis. And Saint Francis commanded all his disciples that if you are my disciple, you must go out and you must preach. You must tell of the love that Christ has for humanity and the sacrifice that he has made. In that time, women didn't go out to preach. So Saint Clare, she told her disciples that it is your duty as my disciple. If you wish to stay with me and learn from me, then stay silent and pray. Because the power that God will give in your silent prayer will move mountains. And through her prayer, through her silence, great changes came in the lives of her disciples and those around them. Now, when we are silent with our mouth, the mind continues to move. And if we are to break this habit, what is the way? If you go hiking, and you're hiking and hiking for miles, and you reach the top of a mountain, and you look out at the beauty, your internal monologue, the internal communication that goes on in your mind stops for a moment. Because the scene before you is unreasonable. It's outside of language. It's so beautiful. And you are in awe. And because you are in awe, for a moment your mind can't think. For a moment your mind just absorbs the beauty and it stops. In this way, if we consistently expose the mind to that thing that puts it in awe, it stops for a moment. That internal monologue stops, and there's no desire to speak, to reason, to communicate. The mind just wants to enjoy the beauty. In this same manner, Saint Clare told her disciples that if you truly want to keep silent, if you truly wish to know what silence is, then turn your eyes upon the eternal light of God, upon the light of Jesus. In the beauty of His light, in the glory of that light, your mind will stand in awe. And when the mind is in awe at the beauty, at the glory, it can do nothing else but adore. And that adoration is outside of language. That adoration is not encompassed by the tongue, is not encompassed by the mind. That beauty is so great that the mind freezes in awe. Now, people think that this was long ago. How can I attain to such a vision? The same way that Saint Clare did. When she was a young girl, she came across a man preaching who was Saint Francis. And she was so thunderstruck by what she heard about the love of God, about abandoning everything in search of God, that at that very moment, she decided that she would become a disciple of Saint Francis. In that time, he wasn't accepting women disciples, but she became the first. She ran away from home. Her father was getting her ready for marriage. She hid, ran away, cut all her hair off, and became a nun. Her mother was in shock, but hearing from Saint Clare, hearing from her own daughter, the wonders that Saint Francis had revealed to her, the wonders of knowing God within herself, that God was not somewhere far off, but was close by. Her mother was also convinced. She followed her along. Her sister was also convinced. She followed soon after. When we find a saint, when we find someone who has such great love, who has such great realization, in their presence we find peace. In their words we find solace and consolation. How do words gain power? Words gain their power when they come from something strong. The language of the sun. Why do the sun's rays give life? Because in great silence the sun meditates. In great silence, the sun burns within itself. And in great silence, it creates this beautiful light, this beautiful life-giving light. And then it shares it with the world. It shares it with the universe. Everywhere you look, all of creation is like this beautiful poem. If for a moment we can suspend our reason, our minds like to find a reason for everything. Our minds like to find a reasonable explanation for all things. And reasoning, we lose sight of the beautiful poetry that is all around us. Abandoning reason, Saint Francis found something higher. No one abandons something hire for something lower. If they do, we think it's a great tragedy. If a billionaire gives up everything to become a beggar, we think it's a great tragedy. Saint Francis was practically royalty, but he gave it all up. To his worldly-minded friends, it was tragic. But to the thousands of disciples who came after, it was a great blessing. It was great holiness. And he imparted that beautiful fragrance of holiness to his disciples. So he abandoned everything for something far greater. He took unreasonable action because reason can only take you so far. He discovered the beauty and poetry that is hiding behind this universe. He discovered the light of God, the beauty of God. His disciple, Saint Clare, saw that he had discovered something beautiful. And she asked him, "Can you give this to me?" He said, "Yeah. Come follow me. You will have the same." If you're tired of constantly reasoning, of the constant chatter in your mind, isn't it time you found something better? In silence, everything is discovered. In silence, secrets are revealed. And when you find a saint, he will teach you the secrets of that silence. He will teach you how to have that vision of God, that vision of divine light, that will stun your mind, that will put your mind in awe and bring about that silence and bring about all the beauty and all the power and all the love that is hidden within. And your meditation, your contemplation on that light and on that silence will transform your life. Like the sun, like the earth, like the beautiful rose, like the mighty oak tree. All these beauties of nature, they meditate, they contemplate on some aspect, and they perfect it. And because they perfect it, they provide so much to so many. They become life-giving. They become powerfully life-giving. बोलिए सतगुरु महाराज की जय, सच्चे दरबार की जय।